My wife said, "Go buy some gas, take my car." But I knew she had damaged the brakes. I smiled, agreed, and quietly handed the keys to her sister. That night, a knock at the door changed everything. My name's Aaron Mercer, and I used to think the most dangerous thing about my wife, Sabrina, was her credit card, because that woman could turn a quick trip to Target into a personal financial crisis. But that morning, I realized plastic wasn't the only weapon in her arsenal. She was standing at the stove like a scene from one of those cheesy 1950s commercials. Hair in a bun, apron tied neatly, pancakes on the griddle, flipping them with the kind of grace that said she was trying too hard. Sabrina doesn't cook. Correction, Sabrina shouldn't cook. The last time she made breakfast, I had to Google how to neutralize smoke alarm sound before work. So, when I came downstairs and didn't smell burnt batter, I knew something was off. The kitchen looked like it belonged in a realtor's brochure. Candles lit, flowers in a vase, table set with real napkins, not paper towels. Sabrina smiled that Stepford wife smile and said, "Good morning, honey. Pancakes are ready." I blinked. "Did you kidnap my wife?" "Blink twice if you're in danger." She rolled her eyes, flipping another perfect golden circle like she'd been training for the Pancake Olympics. "You're hilarious," she said. But there was a twitch, tiny, but it was there. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. I sat down, my instincts tingling. This woman never did nice things for free. There was always a catch, a favor, a purchase, or some elaborate emotional setup that made me feel guilty for breathing. She set the plate down in front of me and leaned on the counter, studying my reaction like a scientist waiting for a lab rat to explode. I poked the pancake with my fork. It didn't bounce. Progress. "So," she began casually, pouring me coffee like she hadn't once screamed at me for forgetting oat milk. "Can you do me a quick favor?" "Oh, there it is, the hook." "Depends," I said cautiously. "Does this favor require manual labor, emotional maturity, or a credit check?" She giggled in that fake way women do when they want something big. "Relax, Aaron. I just need you to go buy some gas. Take my car, it's low." Now, let me explain something. Sabrina never let me touch her car. It's her pride and joy, a cherry red sedan she treats like it's her firstborn. She even gave it a name, Ruby. I once got yelled at for leaning on it with a coffee cup. So, when she told me to take her car, every alarm bell in my head went off like a Vegas slot machine. I froze mid-sip of coffee. "Your car?" I asked, pretending to sound flattered. "You sure? You're not worried I don't know, breathe too hard near it." She laughed again, brushing off her hands. "No, honey. I trust you." Trust. Cute. That's like a cat saying, "Sure, you can pet me," right before shredding your forearm. "All right," I said slowly. "Gas it is. Regular unleaded, right?" She nodded, still smiling, still pretending to scroll through her phone. I noticed her thumb wasn't moving. She was watching me through her lashes, like a cop waiting for a suspect to confess. My gut twisted. Something was wrong. The kind of wrong that makes your body react before your brain even catches up. Now, I'm not paranoid by nature. Okay, fine, I am paranoid by marriage. You would be too if your wife once cried because you didn't emotionally validate her dog after a haircut. But this was different. She was too calm, too nice. The woman had made breakfast, poured coffee, and smiled all before 9 a.m. That's not normal. That's psychological warfare. I decided to test her. "You know," I said, "I could take my truck instead. It's already got half a tank." Her head snapped up. "No," she blurted, too fast, too sharp. Then she caught herself, forcing a laugh. "I mean, no, sweetie, don't waste your gas. Take mine. I need to make sure it runs smoothly." "Smoothly? I bet." I sipped my coffee, hiding my smirk behind the mug. "Runs smoothly," I repeated. "Got it. Because it's been, what, a week since you last had it serviced?" Her eyes darted away. "Something like that." Bingo. That's when I decided to play along. If this was a setup, I wanted front row seats. "Sure thing, babe," I said, all cheerful and dumb. "I'll take Ruby out for a spin. Maybe I'll even get her washed for you." She smiled too wide. "You're such a sweetheart." Yeah, a sweetheart with a suddenly shortened life expectancy. I finished breakfast while mentally reviewing my insurance policy. If I died in a car accident, Sabrina would inherit the house, the savings, and my half of Mercer Home Renovations, the business I built from scratch. I could almost see her in black sunglasses at my funeral, dramatically dabbing fake tears while asking my lawyer about wire transfer times. When I stood up, she was wiping her hands on a towel, pretending to be relaxed. "You leaving soon?" she asked. "Yeah," I said, glancing at the clock. "Just need to grab my wallet, my phone, and a priest." She didn't even flinch. No laugh. No comeback. Just that same rehearsed smile. That's when I knew for sure, whatever game she was playing, I wasn't supposed to survive it. I leaned against the counter, watching her. "You okay, Sabrina? You seem tense." She blinked rapidly, then turned back to the sink. "Just tired, Aaron. I've had a lot on my mind. Anything you want to share with the class?" She chuckled under her breath. "You wouldn't understand." "Oh, honey, you'd be surprised what I understand." The silence stretched between us, thick and awkward. The kind that usually ends with one of us apologizing for something the other did. I grabbed the keys off the hook, the ones with the red crystal keychain she bought to match Ruby's aura. You know, because apparently, cars have auras now. I dangled them, forcing a grin. "All right, off to the gas station. Want me to grab anything? Maybe some honesty? Loyalty?" She gave me that blank, polite smile. The one that means, I'm thinking of murder but want to appear polite for the neighbors. "Just gas, dear," she said softly. I nodded and started for the door, but something made me glance back. She was still watching me, standing perfectly still, hands gripping the counter. No wave, no goodbye, just waiting. And that's when my internal voice screamed, "Don't get in that car." So I didn't. I walked outside, all calm and casual, and took a deep breath. Morning air, sunshine, birds chirping, the perfect background music for potential homicide. I leaned against my truck, pretending to check my phone while my mind ran through scenarios. Did she hire someone? Mess with the tires? Poison the air freshener? Hell, knowing Sabrina, she probably rigged the Bluetooth to self-destruct. I peeked back through the window. She was still there, staring. I gave a little wave and mouth. "Be right back." Then turned the corner to the garage, quiet as possible. My curiosity had officially won. If I'd ignored that gut feeling, I might have been headline material by noon. Local man dies in freak car accident. Wife devastated, but looks great at the funeral. Instead, I crept toward the garage, the faint hum of her voice drifting through the half-open door. And that's when I heard it, her whispering, laughing softly. Not to herself, to someone. And that's where the calm broke. My heart pounded so loud I could hear it in my throat. My brain said, "Walk away." My ego said, "Hell no." Because one thing about me, I don't do well with suspense, especially when I'm the potential dead guy in the story. So I leaned closer to the garage door, my hand hovering over the handle, breath held. Her voice floated through the air, smooth and sweet as honey laced with arsenic. "Yeah, I told him to take my car. He'll be gone soon." A pause, then a faint chuckle from the other end of her phone call. My blood ran cold. See, in marriage, you expect a lot. Arguments, bills, passive-aggressive texts, but you never expect to eavesdrop on your own murder preview. And that's the moment I realized. This wasn't just breakfast. It was an audition for my obituary. So I did what any sane man would do. I walked back into that kitchen, forced a smile, and pretended like I didn't just hear the woman I married plotting my early retirement from life. She looked up and smiled again, sweet as sugar. "Forget something?" "Yeah," I said, voice steady, heart screaming. "My common sense." She laughed lightly, still so sure she was in control. But in my head, a switch had flipped. I wasn't the clueless husband anymore. I was the guy about to rewrite the ending of her little story. I grabbed my jacket, pocketed my phone, and said casually, "Don't wait up, babe. Might take a while." She winked. "Take your time." I walked out the door, smile plastered on my face, and whispered under my breath, "Oh, I will." Because if Sabrina thought she'd scripted the perfect morning setup, she clearly forgot I'm the kind of man who reads ahead. After breakfast, I told myself I was just being paranoid. You know, like when you misplace your keys and immediately assume you're developing early-onset dementia. Maybe Sabrina was actually trying to be nice. Maybe hell froze over, and she suddenly remembered how to be human. I clung to that thought for a good 3 seconds, right until I passed by the garage and heard her voice. Now, for context, our garage isn't soundproof, but it's quiet enough that if you hear someone talking inside, you either have a burglar or a scheming spouse. In my case, jackpot. The door was slightly open, sunlight slipping through the gap. I took a cautious step closer, holding my half-empty coffee mug like it could deflect bullets. Inside, Sabrina's voice was soft, careful, like she didn't want to be overheard. Which, ironically, made me lean in harder. "Yeah, he's taking the car," she whispered. A second voice replied, "Roxy." Of course it was Roxy, Sabrina's personal hype woman and chaos consultant. If gossip were a sport, Roxy would have Olympic golds and brand sponsorships. "Good," Roxy said, her voice dripping with excitement. "You're sure it's done?" "Positive," Sabrina answered. "He'll never notice." My grip on the mug tightened. I could feel my heartbeat behind my eyeballs. Done? Never notice? What was this? DIY murder for dummies. Then Roxy giggled, low and cruel. "You're evil." "I love it." Sabrina laughed too. He had it coming. I nearly dropped the mug. My brain screamed, "That's it. She's officially gone full Lifetime movie villain." I slowly backed away from the door, my head spinning. My wife, my pancake-making, perfume-drenched, Instagram filter-obsessed wife, had just conspired with her friend to off me. And the method? My guess, car sabotage. The same car she insisted I drive. Cute. For a second, I thought maybe I'd misunderstood. Maybe they were talking about, I don't know, redecorating the house. Maybe he'll never notice, was about paint colors, not death traps. But then I heard Roxy say, "Just make sure the brakes don't give out too soon." And that, ladies and gentlemen, was the moment my soul briefly left my body. I stumbled backward, pressing against the wall, trying to process the fact that my own wife had apparently decided I was worth more as a life insurance payout than as a living, breathing man. I stared at the ceiling and muttered, "Wow, so this is marriage, huh?" But you know me. Panic lasts for about 30 seconds before sarcasm kicks in. Because if I'm going to die, I might as well roast the situation on my way out. I pulled out my phone, opened my messages, and scrolled to the one person who could appreciate the absurdity of this, Leo. Leo's my oldest friend, a mechanic with a conspiracy theorist streak and a heart of gold. The kind of guy who wears oil-stained jeans to weddings and once told a judge that the ticket was emotionally invalid. He's also the only person I trust to give mechanical advice without charging me consulting fees. I texted him, "Hypothetically, if your wife wanted to kill you with brake fluid, how long before you'd notice?" He replied within seconds, because of course he did. "Depends how bad she wants it." "Why? Should I start planning your funeral or your freedom party?" I smirked despite the situation. "Both. Bring beer." Then, out of morbid curiosity, I crouched down and peeked under the garage door again. Sabrina had her back to me, pacing around the car like a villain rehearsing her lines. "Everything's perfect," she was saying. "He'll never see it coming." You know how people talk about their fight or flight instinct? Yeah, I have a third one, mockery. Even with my life on the line, my first thought wasn't to run. It was, "Oh, she really thinks she's clever. Adorable." I backed away and slipped into the house, pretending nothing had happened. I even whistled on my way to the kitchen, like I hadn't just overheard my wife plotting vehicular manslaughter. I sat down, pulled my laptop closer, and opened a blank document titled, "Exit Strategy because apparently my marriage is trying to kill me." Step 1. Confirm she actually cut the brakes. Step 2. Don't die. Step 3. Make her regret being this creative. I was halfway through listing possible revenge options, fake my death, install hidden cameras, replace her kale juice with vodka, when I heard footsteps. Sabrina walked in, pretending to be all sunshine and normalcy. She leaned against the counter, phone in hand, smile plastic as ever. "Still here?" she asked, feigning surprise. "Yeah," I said, spinning in my chair. "Just checking some emails. Thought I'd let traffic die down before heading out." Her smile faltered for a split second, barely noticeable, but enough. "Oh, right. Good idea." She poured herself another cup of coffee and leaned on the counter. "You okay? You look pale." "Oh, I'm great," I said, giving her my best sitcom grin. "Just trying to decide which gas station I should visit to meet my untimely demise." She blinked. "What? Nothing," I said smoothly. "Just thinking out loud." Her phone buzzed. She looked down, smirked, and typed something quickly. Probably texting her hitwoman-in-chief, Roxy. I tried to sneak a peek at the screen, but she turned away. Damn, my mind was spinning faster than her excuses. I couldn't go to the cops yet. What was I gonna say? Hi, officer. My wife's pancakes were too perfect, and I think she's plotting my murder. They'd hand me a wellness check, so I needed proof. Evidence. Something undeniable. And I knew exactly where to get it. I waited until she disappeared into the bathroom. Her daily 20-minute skincare therapy, which I suspect was just her scrolling through Instagram reels while pretending to exfoliate. I tiptoed to the garage door, grabbed a flashlight, and crouched by the car. The moment the beam hit the undercarriage, my stomach dropped. I don't know much about cars, but I know what a cut looks like. And those brake lines looked like someone had taken a knife to them. Holy hell, I whispered, my pulse jumping. She actually did it. Part of me wanted to scream. The other part wanted to laugh. Because who does this? Who literally sabotages a car and then cooks pancakes like it's just another Tuesday? I stood there, flashlight shaking in my hand, trying to process the fact that my wife, someone I once trusted with my Netflix password, had tried to sign my death certificate with a wrench. And here's the kicker. Instead of freaking out, I started plotting back. Because if Sabrina wanted a game, I was done playing defense. I turned off the flashlight, backed away, and closed the garage door silently. Back inside, I checked my phone, one unread text from Leo. If you make it out alive, you owe me ribs. I chuckled. Deal, buddy. When Sabrina came out of the bathroom, face glowy, smelling like an overpriced candle store, she tilted her head. You sure you don't want to head out? You'll miss the morning rush. I grinned. Oh, I'll head out soon enough. She nodded, satisfied, and walked off humming. Meanwhile, I was mentally drafting the most petty, poetic revenge plan in history. Because let's face it, if my wife wanted me dead, the least I could do was make sure she lived to regret it. I started pacing the kitchen, my mind spinning faster than a slot machine. There were two possible outcomes. I go to the police and hope they believe me, or I outplay her using her own script. And if there's one thing I've learned from 5 years of marriage, it's that Sabrina hates being outsmarted. I opened my notes app and wrote, Step 4. Make her think her plan worked, until it doesn't. That's when the sound of her phone ringing pulled me back. She picked up instantly, her voice low. Hey, Roxy. Yeah, he's still here. No, I don't think he suspects anything. I wanted to laugh so badly. If only she knew. She continued. Once he leaves, it's all set. He'll be out on the highway within 15 minutes. You know how steep that curve is near Briar Hill? Yeah, he'll lose control. Oh, my God. Not only was she trying to kill me, but she'd also planned the scene. She'd picked the perfect road, curvy, isolated, with just enough plausible deniability. I almost wanted to applaud her commitment. Almost. I pulled out my phone and hit record, capturing her entire conversation through the crack in the door. The cherry on top? Her saying, he deserves it, after everything he's put me through. Everything I've put her through? Lady, I let you name my Wi-Fi network after your cat. When she finally hung up, I quietly stepped back, adrenaline pumping. I had everything I needed, proof, motive, and a growing desire to make this woman wish she'd married literally anyone else. I leaned against the wall, exhaled slowly, and muttered, All right, sweetheart, game on. Because one thing about me, I may not be the smartest man alive, but when it comes to pettiness, I'm undefeated. And by the time she found out her little break trick backfired, she'd realize she was the one who should have checked her safety first. I walked back into the kitchen like I hadn't just overheard my own death sentence. Sabrina was there, leaning against the counter, all teeth and perfect posture, the kind of smile that can stop a man's heart. You leaving soon? She asked, syrupy sweet. Yeah, I said. In a minute. Just need to grab my wallet, my phone, and a priest. Jokes are handy when you're trying to steady your breathing. She didn't even flinch. That should have been another red flag. People who plot bad things have awkward tells, but Sabrina made cruelty look like customer service. I picked up her car keys. The red crystal keychain glittered like a tiny warning beacon. You sure I should take your car? It's precious. She laughed that fake laugh. Of course. I trust you. Trust. The word tasted like a trap. Okay, I said slowly. I'll take Ruby. Regular, right? No premium drama on this tank. Just regular, she said. Oh, and check the brakes? I read something about a recall. Don't want you stranded. I raised an eyebrow. What kind of recall? Steering wheel falls off or spontaneous divorce at 60 miles an hour? She blinked too fast, then smoothed. Probably nothing. I'm paranoid, okay? Paranoid. People who plan things call themselves paranoid. I slid the keys into my pocket and decided to play it cool. If I was going to be someone's murder plot, I wanted the best seat in the house. I climbed into Ruby and started the engine. The car still smelled faintly of her perfume, like a ghost reminding me what had been normal. I opened the glove compartment and found a small folded note. For later. Breathe. A ridiculous kindness tucked into a deadly morning. I tucked it into my pocket. 15 minutes into the drive, my phone buzzed. Leo checking in. I parked at a Shell and lifted the gas cap. On the asphalt near the pump was a smear, dark and oily. I crouched and sniffed. Brake fluid. My stomach plunged. I called Leo. Ever see brake fluid by a pump? Park by the store. Call someone. Don't drive the car. Now. I walked into the mini-mart pretending to buy gum and dignity. The kid at the register pointed me to a number. I called a mechanic who could come by in 20 minutes. 20 minutes felt like an epic. Outside, a local mechanic arrived and crouched under Ruby. He shone a flashlight and frowned. Someone's cut the lines, he said. Deliberate. Those words hit harder than I expected. When did you last drive it? He asked. 15 minutes ago, I said, mouth dry. He nodded. Lucky you pulled in here. Lucky. The word got a new edge. Lucky like surviving lightning. I called Sabrina, needing her to sweat a little. Hey, brakes feel funny. Staying put until someone checks them. Her reply. Call AAA. Be safe. Love you. That capital L in love was a knife. When Leo showed up, he planted himself by the car like a man who fixes more than engines. He checked the damage and swore under his breath. Someone wanted you gone. It's funny what your brain does in crisis. Mine cataloged details like a forensic tourist. The note in my pocket, the smear by the pump, the cut lines under the car, Sabrina's performance. Each detail snapped into place like a puzzle I wished I'd never started. We called a tow. As the driver hooked Ruby, I felt oddly detached, like watching a favorite show that suddenly turned into a horror documentary. The taillights faded as the truck pulled away, and with them went a part of my marriage I hadn't realized clung to a car. Back at home, the kitchen felt too big and too quiet. Sabrina met me at the door with damp eyes and a voice that tried to be fragile. Are you okay? They said it could have been worse. I looked at her, really looked. The woman who cooked flawless pancakes and left perfumed ghosts in her seats had just tried to stage my end. Thanks for the pancakes, I said instead, small, cheap, stinging. She blinked. What? Nothing. Just thanks. It was petty, and I liked the way it landed. That night, after the cops took my statement and the mechanic scribbled notes, I sat in my living room like a man in a spotlight. Neighbors peeked from behind curtains. My phone buzzed with messages, some worried, some suspicious, and a few from friends who thought it was darkly funny. One of them texted a gif of a man fainting. Humor helps before therapy becomes necessary. Sabrina cried when I told the officers what I'd heard. She cried with a practiced cadence, like someone delivering lines. But tears aren't evidence. My recorder in the garage had captured enough. Her voice, planning, Roxy's giggles. Proof is a practical thing. It doesn't feel righteous, just useful. Over the next days, the house cleaved along a seam. Things that were small before, a sweater on the banister, a mug, suddenly felt like clues. Friends split into camps. She'd never, and run, Aaron. My parents called daily, their voices soft and full of questions I didn't know how to answer. I kept replaying the garage whisper in my head. People ask how it feels to find out the person who sleeps next to you is capable of this. The honest answer is surreal. You remember all the little kindnesses and wonder if they were genuine or rehearsed. You miss the person not for who they are now, but for who you thought you married. Meanwhile, Sabrina was careful. She scrubbed the house of fingerprints, made fake grocery lists, and wore grief like a costume. But even costumes have seams. The cops pulled phone records. Texts with Roxy looked bad. A friend at the station, one I'd bought wings for during college, told me, "We'll do what we can." That phrase is a strange comfort. Competent, limited, human. I started sleeping with the lights on. The dark felt too honest. During the day, I wandered the house like a guest in my own life, cataloging things that made me feel steady. My old toolbox, Leo's wrench, a framed photo from before when the weight of a mortgage was the biggest thing I worried about. And there was this odd, growing clarity. Surviving someone's attempt on your life sharpens focus. It clarifies what matters. Evidence, safety, and the next steps. It also makes you realize how much courage you had without knowing it. Simple acts, calling a mechanic, keeping a calm voice, suddenly felt heroic. The police interviewed Sabrina. She told them about the recall and how terrified she'd been. Her hands trembled on cue. People wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe in the woman who could fold shirts with military precision. But belief without facts is optimism wearing rose-colored blinders. When the mechanic signed an affidavit and the tow records were filed, the investigation leaned in our direction. The detective, a woman with a sharp chin and a soft way of asking hard questions, looked at me and said, "You did the right thing by not driving." "You think she'd actually?" I asked. "You saw the evidence," she said. "We'll follow the trail." Following the trail is work. It means subpoenas, interviews, and a slow, grinding machine of legal process. It's humbling and tedious. I slept less and ate less. At some point, the house began to feel like an evidence room. Every item had a story, and every story had weight. I treated my life like a case file. It was oddly consoling. By the end of the week, the narrative outside the house had shifted from whispers to talk. People with kids who used to wave now crossed the street. Rumors became their own small, poisonous ecosystem. But in the quiet of my bedroom, I found something else: resolve. Not hatred exactly, not even vengeance, though that simmered. More like a determination to make sure the record was clean and the truth loud. Because you don't get to plot someone's death and expect nuance to cover you. And because survival tastes better with a side of accountability. When I lay down that night, sleep came slow, steadily. My head was full of plans, security cameras, legal counsel, and a list of friends to apologize to for being the guy who turned his life into a headline. I thought about pancakes, about notes that said breathe, and about how small gestures can mean different things depending on who's holding them. Sabrina continued to be enigmatic, a woman who could act grief and guilt with terrifying ease. But I had recordings now and neighbors who would testify to odd behavior. The scales had shifted. The world had a new order, evidence on one side, performance on the other. The next morning, Aaron Mercer woke up knowing a few things with unusual clarity. That he was alive, that he owed Leo ribs, and that he would not let someone else write his ending. There's a certain calm that hits you once you realize your spouse wants you dead. Not panic, not grief, just an oddly peaceful clarity. Like, well, this marriage has officially expired. Let's make it interesting. I spent that entire morning sitting at the kitchen counter, staring at Sabrina's smoothie blender and wondering how many times that thing had been used for evil. She hummed from the living room like nothing happened, scrolling on her phone, probably texting her accomplice Roxy about my soon-to-be tragic demise. That's when the spark hit me. I wasn't going to call the cops yet. I wasn't going to run. No, I was going to ruin her script. If she'd written me off as a clueless idiot husband, I'd play that role perfectly, right up until I flipped the table on her. So when her sister, Marissa, strutted into the kitchen around 10 a.m., dressed like she was about to audition for Real Housewives of Suburbia, my plan practically wrote itself. She was all pearls, yoga pants, and fake enthusiasm. "Morning, Aaron. How's my favorite brother-in-law?" "Alive," I said, taking a sip of coffee. "So, better than expected." She laughed, not realizing that sentence was more literal than she thought. Sabrina looked up from the couch, her posture stiffening like someone just hit pause on her villain arc. "Marissa, you're early," she said, tone tight. "Of course I am," Marissa said cheerfully. "I wanted to show you the photos from my yoga retreat. Look, this is me meditating next to a koi pond." I peeked. It was a pool, and the koi was probably a reflection of her ego. That's when the idea fully formed. Sabrina wanted me to take her car out for gas. Fine, but what if someone else took that honor? Someone Sabrina couldn't stand. Someone who thought every misfortune was an Instagram post waiting to happen. I smiled. "Hey, Marissa, you know what would be amazing? A little drive." Sabrina was just saying her car could use some gas. "You should take it for a spin." Sabrina froze mid-scroll. The fake calm vanished for half a second. "Aaron," she said slowly, "that's not necessary." "I can." I cut her off. "Babe, relax. Marissa's here. She's got time, and it'll save me the trip. Plus, she gets to drive your baby, Ruby." Marissa's eyes lit up like she'd just want to give away. "Oh my God, really? You never let anyone drive Ruby." Sabrina's jaw tightened. "Well, oh come on, sis," Marissa chirped. "Live a little." I'll fill her up, wash her, maybe even take her through the scenic route. You could practically hear Sabrina's internal scream. I leaned back, smirking. Perfect. Keys are right there. Marissa grabbed them like a toddler snatching candy. Sabrina's hand twitched toward her phone, probably to text Roxy, abort mission. Marissa slipped on her oversized sunglasses, posed dramatically, and said, I'll be back soon. Try not to miss me. Sabrina's voice cracked. Be careful. The brakes. They're sensitive. I raised an eyebrow. Sensitive, huh? Guess we'll find out. She glared at me. I grinned wider. Petty? Sure. But if my wife wanted poetic justice, I was happy to provide the rhyme. As the car backed out of the driveway, Sabrina's mask completely slipped. She paced the floor, hands trembling, trying to hide it behind fake calm. You shouldn't have done that, she hissed. What? Shared gas duties. You're welcome, I said, sipping my coffee. You don't understand. Oh, trust me, I said. I understand plenty. Like how you suddenly became Martha Stewart this morning after 5 years of only knowing how to order DoorDash. Like how you insisted I drive your car after babying it for years. Like how you're sweating more than your green smoothie right now. She blinked, mouth opening and closing like a fish debating whether to lie or confess. Erin, you're being dramatic. I laughed. Dramatic? Sweetheart, if anyone's writing drama, it's you. I'm just improvising. She turned away, muttering, You're impossible. I smiled. Alive, though. Let's not forget that part. The next 3 hours were the longest of my life. Sabrina couldn't sit still. She pretended to dust things that were already spotless, rearranged candles 5 times, and even watered fake plants. Every time her phone buzzed, she jumped like it was a detonator. I sat on the couch, pretending to read a magazine, secretly watching her unravel like cheap Christmas lights. You okay? I asked after her 5th fake cleaning spree. I'm fine, she snapped. Great. You seem restless. Missing your sister already. She shot me a glare that could have melted steel. Why would I be restless? I shrugged. Don't know. Maybe because you sent your murder weapon out on an errand. She froze. Excuse me. Oh, nothing. Just talking to myself. I do that sometimes when my breaks work. Her face drained of color. Erin, you're scaring me. I chuckled. Oh, honey. If I'm scaring you, then you really need to rethink your life choices. The air was thick enough to cut. Then, just as she was about to fake another meltdown, her phone rang. The sound was sharp, slicing through the silence. She hesitated before answering. Hello. Her voice trembled. From the bits I could hear, it was someone official, probably the police. I caught fragments. Accident. Vehicle registered. Critical. Her face collapsed. The phone slipped from her hand, clattering to the tile. I stood up slowly. Something wrong. She stared ahead, eyes wide, whispering. They said the brakes failed. There's been an accident. For a second, I felt a chill. Yeah, Marissa was insufferable, but she didn't deserve that. My brain warred between justice and guilt. But then I saw Sabrina's hands shaking. Not from grief, but from sheer panic, and the pity evaporated. I crossed my arms and said softly, You don't say. She looked at me, tears forming. Erin, this is serious. My sister, she's in the hospital. I nodded. Yeah, tragic. Can't imagine what might have caused her brakes to fail. You should really get that checked out. Her eyes widened, understanding dawning too late. You knew, she whispered. You knew about the car. I tilted my head. What can I say? I'm a careful guy. Check the garage earlier. You might want to be more discreet next time you plan a murder over speakerphone. Her jaw dropped. You recorded me? I smiled faintly. Oh, don't worry. Just a precaution. You know, for when breakfast suddenly gets too nice. She backed away, hand over her mouth. You set me up. I laughed. Set you up? Sweetheart, I saved myself. You're the one who decided sabotage was a love language. She shook her head, tears falling now. Erin, I didn't mean. I cut her off. Don't insult both our intelligences. You meant it. You planned it. You even looped Roxy in for moral support. I heard the whole thing. Honestly, I'm impressed. I didn't know you were capable of commitment. She crumpled onto the floor, sobbing, the sound echoing through the sterile kitchen. For a moment, I almost pitied her. Almost. But then I remembered the slice in the brake line, the oily patch on the concrete, the fake breakfast smile, and pity turned to resolve. I knelt beside her, lowering my voice. Here's what's going to happen, Sabrina. You're going to sit there quietly and wait for the police to call back. You'll cooperate, you'll confess, and you'll pray Marissa pulls through. Because if she doesn't, sweetheart, you won't need to fake tears anymore. She looked up, mascara streaking her cheeks. You'd really do that to me? I leaned in close. Do what? Tell the truth. For once, she had nothing to say. I stood, grabbed my coat, and headed for the door. I'll be at the station if they need me. Don't go anywhere. Though I guess that's been your specialty lately. I walked out before she could reply. Outside, the air felt heavier, colder, like the universe had exhaled. I sat on the porch steps, pulled out my phone, and texted Leo. Me. Remember how you said depends how bad she wants it? Leo, yeah. Me. Turns out bad enough. He replied instantly. You alive? Physically, yes. Emotionally? Ask me after I stop shaking. I laughed under my breath, the kind of laugh that's half relief, half hysteria. Then I looked at Sabrina's car, still missing from the driveway, and thought about karma. People always imagine karma as poetic justice, slow, elegant, cosmic. But sometimes karma's just messy. Sometimes it drives the wrong car. When the police arrived later that evening, Sabrina's sobs had turned into silence. I watched them lead her away, her wrists cuffed, her face pale and distant. For a second, I almost reached out. Then I remembered her morning smile, the one that could kill. And I realized she'd already gotten what she wanted. The performance, the tragedy, the attention. She just didn't expect to be the star and the villain. Inside, the smell of cold pancakes still lingered. I poured myself a whiskey, sat at the table, and whispered, to survival. Because in the end, the real power isn't revenge. It's walking away while the other person watches everything crumble around them. And God, did it crumble beautifully. If you ever want to experience the slowest 3 hours of your entire existence, try sitting across from your wife after you've just sabotaged her murder plan. It's not suspense. It's cosmic irony on espresso. Sabrina was pacing around the living room, rearranging pillows that were already straight, cleaning spotless counters, and pretending to watch HGTV like she wasn't waiting for a call from the Grim Reaper. I sat calmly on the couch, flipping through a magazine I wasn't reading, pretending to care about 10 ways to revive your marriage. Spoiler, number 11 was don't try to kill your spouse with faulty brakes. Every few minutes, Sabrina would glance at the clock, chew on her lip, and grab her phone again like she could will it to ring. Her eyes flicked toward the window every time a car passed. She was unraveling, and I was savoring every single thread. So, I said casually, Marissa's been gone a while, huh? Sabrina froze mid-step. Yeah, she said softly. She probably stopped for coffee. Right, I said. Or traffic. Or, brakes. Her head snapped toward me. What? I smiled. Just saying, those curves on Briar Hill can be nasty if your car's not in top shape. She stared at me, pale, eyes wide. You think something could happen? I shrugged. I think a lot of things could happen, sweetheart. Life's unpredictable. She swallowed hard and turned away, pretending to straighten the curtains again. I leaned back and crossed my arms. Every second was a symphony of karma, and I was front row, center seat. At one point, she tried to make small talk, because apparently denial was her coping mechanism. She said weakly. Marissa and I haven't really talked much lately. This trip might be good for us. Some bonding. Yeah, I said dryly. Nothing brings family together like shared trauma. Her smile cracked like cheap glass. Why are you being like this, Aaron? I tilted my head. Like what? Cold. I laughed. Short, sharp, humorless. Oh, honey, I'm not cold. I'm just keeping the same emotional temperature you set this morning. She flinched. I could almost see the gears in her head spinning, trying to calculate how much I knew. But she said nothing. At one point, her phone buzzed, and she snatched it up so fast she nearly dropped it. It wasn't the police. It was Roxy. I knew her ringtone. One of those obnoxious pop songs about girl power and bad decisions. Sabrina fumbled to answer. Hey, she whispered, stepping into the hallway. I turned down the TV volume and leaned slightly. What do you mean it's taking too long? Roxy's voice hissed through the speaker. Sabrina whispered frantically. I don't know. She should have been back by now. Did you make sure the line was? Yes. I checked twice. Sabrina's voice cracked. I leaned back, heart pounding. She'd checked twice. It was a miracle I was still alive. Relax, Roxy said. Maybe traffic. Sabrina exhaled shakily. Yeah, maybe. I stood, walked quietly to the kitchen, and made a loud show of opening the fridge. She jumped and turned around mid-call, slamming her phone against her side like a teenager hiding texts from her parents. Everything okay? I asked, smiling. Yeah, she said too quickly. Just Roxy asking about dinner plans. You mean her usual plans, wine, gossip, and felony conspiracy. Her face drained again. You're not funny. Actually, I said, pouring myself a glass of water. I'm hilarious. You're just in a bad mood because your murder plot got complicated. Her lips parted, but no words came out. She just stared at me like I'd read her diary aloud. Before she could reply, her phone rang again, but this time, it wasn't Roxy. The ringtone was shorter, sharper. Official. She answered slowly. Hello. I didn't need to hear the words. I saw it in her eyes. The moment, everything caved in. The color drained from her face. Her knees buckled slightly. What? Oh my God. No. No, please. I walked closer, pretending to be concerned. What's wrong? She dropped the phone, hands trembling. They said, there's been an accident. I froze. My chest tightened, even though I'd seen this coming. What kind of accident? She looked at me, tears brimming. The brakes. They said the brakes failed. For a moment, the room was silent except for the ticking clock on the wall. I stared at her, trying to gauge if this was guilt, fear, or the shock of her own karma boomeranging back. Maybe all three. I leaned against the counter, arms crossed. You don't say. She looked up, confusion flickering through her tears. What? Just, life's funny, huh? I said lightly. You plan something one way, and it just takes another turn. Literally. Her mouth fell open. Aaron, stop. My sister could be dead. I interrupted. Yeah, that would be tragic. You must feel so responsible. She shook her head. Don't do this. Oh, come on, I said. We're past pretending, aren't we? You wanted me in that car. You sent me. And now your sister's the one paying for your little science project. She stumbled backward. You don't know that. I heard you, Sabrina. My voice dropped, colder now. I heard every word. You and Roxy. The brake lines. The plan. You really should have closed the garage door tighter. She stared at me, eyes wide. You're lying. I pulled my phone from my pocket, hit play, and her own voice filled the air. He'll never notice. He'll be gone before lunch. She covered her mouth with both hands, a strangled sound escaping her throat. Yeah, I said quietly. That's you, sweetheart. Not your best work, but Oscar-worthy for effort. Tears streamed down her cheeks. Aaron, please. I held up a hand. Don't. Save the performance for the cops. You'll need the practice. She crumbled into a chair, sobbing, shaking uncontrollably. For a brief, fleeting moment, I almost felt something. Sympathy, maybe. But then I remembered how close I'd come to being roadkill because of the woman sitting in front of me. The silence between us was thick, broken only by her muffled cries. I poured myself another drink, sat across from her, and watched her fall apart. Why? I finally asked. Why go that far? You could have just filed for divorce. Or I don't know, thrown a vase, like a normal person. She hiccuped through her tears. You stopped loving me. I laughed, bitterly. And your solution was murder? She slammed her fist on the table. You made me feel invisible, Aaron. You were always working, always distracted. I wanted out, but I couldn't. You'd take everything. So your grand plan was to take me instead. She glared through her tears. You don't get it. Oh, I get it, I said. You wanted a payout without paperwork. Well, congrats. Looks like you got a crime scene instead. Before she could answer, her phone rang again. She flinched like it was a gunshot. I glanced at the screen, unknown caller. She hesitated, then answered. Mrs. Mercer? The voice on the other end was calm, official. This is Officer Harlan with the county police. There's been an accident involving your vehicle. Sabrina's knuckles whitened around the phone. Is she okay? The pause was heavy. Then, your sister's in critical condition. She's being transported to St. Mary's Hospital now. Sabrina's scream tore through the room. She dropped the phone, clutching her face. I closed my eyes and whispered, life really breaks your heart sometimes, huh? Yeah, it was dark humor. Yeah, it was cruel. But damn it, I earned that line. When she finally calmed enough to breathe, she turned toward me, broken and shaking. What are you going to do? I looked at her for a long moment, then said quietly, Exactly what you tried to do to me. In this. I picked up my phone, dialed a number, and stepped outside as she sobbed into her hands. The air was cold, sharp, and clean. I called the police station directly. "This is Aaron Mercer," I said. "I need to report an attempted murder." By the time I hung up, sirens were echoing faintly in the distance. The same sound that used to make me anxious now felt like justice. When the flashing lights finally filled the driveway, I looked through the window one last time. Sabrina was still at the table, frozen, pale, and small in a house that suddenly seemed too big for her lies. Funny thing about karma, it doesn't always knock politely. Sometimes it crashes headfirst into your life, wearing your sister's face and your own fingerprints. And as I watched the cops walk up the porch, I realized I wasn't scared anymore. Just free. When the knock finally came that evening, it sounded like a drumbeat of everything Sabrina had tried to hide. 3 sharp, echoing thuds that rattled through the house like Judgment Day had found our address. The sun had barely dipped below the horizon, leaving the living room bathed in that eerie half-light where everything looks too still, too fragile. Sabrina was sitting on the couch, staring blankly at the floor, her phone clutched in both hands like it could still save her. She flinched at the sound. Who is that? I didn't even look up from my drink. Could be Jehovah's Witnesses. Or karma. Hard to tell these days. Another knock, harder this time. Her face went pale. "Aaron, please," she whispered, "don't open it." "Oh, now you're scared of doors? You weren't scared of garage doors earlier when you were plotting my death like an off-brand Bond villain." She didn't answer. I took a slow sip of whiskey, savoring the burn. It was poetic, really. Her pacing earlier like a predator, and now she looked like prey. I set my glass down and walked toward the door, my footsteps heavy on the hardwood. When I opened it, 2 uniformed officers stood on the porch, hats in hand, faces carved from solemn professionalism. You could tell from their posture they'd done this 1,000 times, but it never got easier. "Mr. Mercer?" the older one asked, voice low. "That's me," I said, leaning against the frame. "Evening, officers. Nice night for bad news." His eyes flickered with sympathy. "Is your wife home?" I turned slightly, gesturing behind me. "Yeah, she's on the couch." Where all masterminds go to reflect. Sabrina stood up slowly, hands trembling. "What's going on?" The younger officer shifted awkwardly, glancing at his partner. "Mrs. Mercer," he said, removing his hat. "There was a car accident this afternoon. The vehicle was registered in your name." Sabrina's voice cracked. "My sister?" The officer hesitated, then nodded. "She's in critical condition. They're doing everything they can." Sabrina crumbled like wet paper. Her knees gave out, and she sank onto the couch, covering her mouth as sobs ripped through her. The older cop stepped forward, voice gentle but firm. "Ma'am, I know this is difficult, but we'll need you to come down to the station later for a statement." Standard procedure. I rested my hand on her shoulder. "Sweetheart, life really breaks your heart sometimes, huh?" One officer gave me a look that said, "Sir, please don't." The other fought the tiniest smirk before composing himself. Sabrina turned toward me, mascara bleeding down her cheeks, eyes wild with grief. Or guilt, maybe both. "You think this is funny?" I raised my eyebrows. "You tried to kill me, and your sister ended up in the hospital. I don't think it's funny. I think it's ironic. Alanis Morissette would write a song about you." Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Just gasps between sobs. The older officer cleared his throat. "We'll need to inspect the car, ma'am. It's currently impounded. Once we've gone through the mechanical assessment, we'll update you." I couldn't resist. "Oh, they'll find something all right. Probably some creative handiwork on the brake lines." The younger one shot me a sharp look. "Sir, that's not helpful." "Oh, I'm sorry," I said. "You're right. Let's all pretend she didn't nearly audition me for an obituary." Sabrina let out a strangled cry. "Aaron, stop it. Please." The officers exchanged a glance, clearly sensing the tension that could fill a reality show season. The older one gently placed a card on the coffee table. "We'll be in touch, Mrs. Mercer. Try to rest." "Rest?" I said with a snort. "Yeah, that'll be easy. Just count brake lines instead of sheep." When they left, the silence was suffocating. The only sound was Sabrina's shallow breathing and the faint ticking of the wall clock. She looked at me like a woman teetering between denial and collapse. "I didn't mean for this to happen," she whispered. "Oh, that's comforting," I said. "You meant for me to die." not her. Big moral difference. Her head snapped up, anger flickering through the tears. You think this makes you better than me? I leaned forward, elbows on my knees. Better? No. Smarter? Absolutely. Her eyes narrowed. You had no right to send her in that car. I laughed bitterly. Oh, now it's my fault? Let me get this straight. You plan my murder, I hand your plan to someone else, and suddenly I'm the villain? That's some top-tier mental gymnastics, sweetheart. She stood, shaking, her voice rising. You don't understand what it's like living with you. You're cold, distant. Everything's a joke to you. Funny, I said. You didn't mind the jokes when they came with a six-figure lifestyle. Her lip quivered. I loved you once. Yeah, I said quietly. Before you decided life insurance pays better than affection. She flinched like I'd slapped her. Good. Words were my only weapons now, and I was done playing defenseless. For the next hour, she sat in silence, staring out the window like she expected her sister to walk up the driveway any second. I poured another drink and watched her through the reflection in the glass. You know what's crazy? I said finally. You almost got away with it. If I hadn't overheard that phone call, you'd be making lasagna for my memorial right now. Her shoulders shook. Stop. You picked the perfect plan, I continued, relentless now. Accident. No blood. No mess. Just a tragic husband gone too soon. People would have felt so bad for you. Roxy would have thrown you a sympathy brunch. She spun around, eyes blazing. I said stop. I stood up, slamming my glass on the counter. Why? Because the truth hurts more than the impact would have. For a long moment, neither of us said a word. The weight of everything hung heavy between us. The lies, the plans, the twist of fate that had flipped her scheme upside down. Finally, she whispered, I didn't want her to die. I nodded slowly. Neither did I. Then, softer, but I didn't want to die either. Tears streamed freely down her face now, guilt written in every line. For a flicker of a moment, she looked human again, not the manipulative, calculating woman who'd plotted my end, but just broken. And God help me, part of me still cared. That's the curse of love. You can't fully unfeel it. Even after betrayal turns it to ash. But sympathy doesn't erase consequences. I walked toward the door, grabbing my jacket. Where are you going? She asked, voice cracking. To the station, I said. They'll want my version of events too. She rose unsteadily. Aaron, please, don't tell them everything. I turned back, eyes cold. Everything? You mean the part where you cut my brakes, or the part where your sister took my place? She stepped forward, desperate now. I didn't mean. I raised a hand. Save it. You meant every bit of it until it backfired. She stood frozen as I walked out the door. The night air hit me like a cleansing slap. Sharp, cold, real. The sirens from the earlier patrol had faded, leaving just the quiet hum of crickets and distant traffic. I stood by the curb, breathing in the heavy scent of rain-soaked asphalt, and for the first time in months, I felt something like peace. At the station, Officer Harlan met me at the desk. Mr. Mercer, he said, nodding. Rough night. You could say that, I replied. I'm ready to make a statement. In the small interview room, I told them everything. The breakfast, the garage whisper, the phone call, the switch with Marissa. I played the recording on my phone, and the officers listened in silence. When it ended, Harlan leaned back, exhaling. Well, he said slowly, that explains a lot. The mechanic confirmed the brake line was deliberately tampered with. We'll be bringing your wife in for questioning tonight. Good, I said. Make sure Roxy's name gets a mention too. She's not just a side character in this mess. He nodded, jotting down notes. You've been through hell, Mr. Mercer. I smirked. Nah, hell's better organized. When I got back home, the lights were still on. Sabrina was gone. The front door hung open, wind pushing the curtain aside. For a brief second, panic hit me. Had she run? Was she coming for me again? But then I heard it, the faint wail of sirens growing closer. They were already on her trail. I sat on the porch, staring into the dark, and whispered, Guess the brakes finally caught up to you. And for once, the universe seemed to agree. When the cops left that night, the silence in the house hit like a crash, louder than the sirens, sharper than any words we'd exchanged. Sabrina sat on the couch, staring at nothing, her hands still trembling. Her once perfect manicure was chipped, her lipstick smeared. If you'd show me a picture of her right then, I wouldn't have recognized the woman who used to walk around this place like she owned the air. I poured myself another drink because water just wasn't going to cut it for this chapter of my life. You want one? I asked casually, holding up the bottle. She didn't look at me. You really called the police. I laughed. Sweetheart, you tried to kill me. What did you expect? A couple's retreat. Her voice dropped, shaky. I didn't mean for this to go that far. I leaned against the counter. You mean me dying? Or your sister being in critical condition? You're gonna have to be more specific. She turned her head slowly, eyes glassy but cold. You think this makes you better than me, don't you? Better, I said, setting down my glass. No, just breathing. That's already one up on you. Her jaw clenched. For a split second, I saw it. That flicker of fury she'd hidden behind smiles for years. The same fury that probably fueled this whole mess. And that's when it clicked. This wasn't about money. It wasn't about love lost. It was about control. Sabrina hated not being the one pulling the strings. You don't get it, she said quietly. I crossed my arms. Then by all means, enlighten me. You have the floor, O queen of catastrophic decision-making. Her lip quivered, and she stood, pacing the floor like a caged animal. You stopped looking at me, Aaron. You stopped seeing me. You went to work, you came home, you checked your phone, and that was our life. I became invisible in my own marriage. I let out a long sigh. So your solution was to make sure I was permanently out of sight. Logical. Don't mock me, she snapped, spinning toward me. You have no idea what it's like to feel like someone's ghost while they're still alive. I stared at her, the bitterness finally surfacing. You married a man, not a movie audience. You want applause? Go find a stage. That hit her. Her face fell, the fire dimming for a second. Then she whispered, I just wanted my life back. I picked up my drink again. Congratulations. You've officially ruined everyone else's along the way. She sank back onto the couch, curling into herself. For a few long minutes, neither of us said a word. The only sound was the faint ticking of the clock, marking every second of our crumbling marriage. Finally, I said, so what happens now? She looked up, dazed. What do you mean? I mean, what's your next move? You can't cry your way out of this one. The cops have your car, your fingerprints, your voice on my recording. Hell, even Roxy's dumb self is probably panicking right now and texting you apologies with heart emojis. Her eyes flickered with something, a hint of fear. Roxy doesn't know everything. I laughed darkly. Oh, I bet she will by morning. That woman would sell your story to TMZ for a free bottle of Chardonnay. She didn't answer. I could see it, the cracks spreading across her facade, piece by piece. Her breathing got shallow. Her shoulders slumped. She was finally realizing she wasn't just unlucky. She was caught. You know, I said after a while, it's funny. You spent so long pretending to be perfect. Perfect wife, perfect house, perfect hair. But the thing about masks? They get heavy, and eventually, they slip. Her voice came out hoarse. You think you know me, but you don't. Oh, I know you, I said. I just didn't want to admit it. You're the kind of person who confuses attention with affection, who mistakes comfort for love. You don't want a husband, you want an audience. She glared at me, tears streaming now. You think this is all my fault? I raised my glass. I think it's impressive you managed to get to attempted homicide without taking a moment to self-reflect. Really groundbreaking work. She shot up from the couch, eyes blazing. You're a cruel man, Aaron Mercer. And you, I said, stepping closer, are a woman who can't handle the word no. For a moment, it was pure silence. Just the hum of the refrigerator and the faint buzz of the ceiling light. Then she broke, her voice trembling. Do you ever think about how we got here? About the beginning? I frowned. What? The part where I fell for your smile before realizing it came with a subscription to chaos. She let out a dry, shaky laugh. You used to make me feel safe. Yeah, well, I said, you used to not try to kill me. We've both changed. She turned away, gripping the edge of the couch like it was the only thing keeping her upright. I loved you once. I looked at her for a long time, trying to remember the woman she was before all the lies, before the games. And maybe that was the cruelest part. Once upon a time, she really did love me. Maybe I loved her too. But whatever we had died long before she tried to make it official with a sabotage car. Sabrina, I said quietly, you should call a lawyer. She turned back, eyes wide. You'd really let them take me away? I almost laughed. Let them? Sweetheart, I'm driving you there if I have to. Her lip trembled. You're heartless. No, I said softly. I just finally stopped being your victim. She stared at me for what felt like forever, her breathing uneven, her eyes darting between me and the door. For a second, I thought she was going to run. Maybe she thought about it too. But she didn't move. She just broke. You could almost hear it, the sound of pride shattering. When the knock came again, it was quieter this time. She jumped anyway. I didn't move. That'll be the follow-up visit, I said. They're fast these days. Her voice shook. You called them back? I shrugged. Just making sure they had all the evidence. The door creaked open, and 2 detectives stepped in, badges visible. A woman led the way, calm, professional, efficient. Mrs. Mercer, she said gently. Sabrina didn't answer. I'm Detective Lynn. We'd like to ask you a few questions about your vehicle. Her voice came out as a whisper. Can it wait until tomorrow? I'm afraid not. I stood off to the side, watching as they read her rights. She didn't fight. She didn't even speak. Just nodded numbly as the handcuffs clicked into place. Ma'am, the detective said quietly, your sister is stable, but she'll need surgery. We'll need your full cooperation to move forward. Sabrina's face twisted with something I hadn't seen before, pure regret. Stable? She whispered. Yes, the detective replied. But she's asking for your husband. Both women turned to me. I blinked. Me? She asked for Aaron Mercer by name, Detective Lynn said. Sabrina's voice cracked. Why would she? I cut in. Because she's alive, Sabrina. And apparently, the universe wanted her to have front row seats to your downfall. The detective nodded politely, leading Sabrina toward the door. We'll be in touch, Mr. Mercer. Thank you for your cooperation. As they escorted her out, she looked back one last time, eyes full of everything she never said. Fear, guilt, maybe a shred of the love we'd buried under all the lies. Then the door closed behind her. I stood there for a long moment, listening to the quiet. It was the kind of silence that feels heavy but earned. I poured myself one last drink and sat down on the couch she used to occupy every night like a queen on her throne. The cushions still smelled faintly like her perfume. I hated that I noticed. Then I laughed, soft, bitter, disbelieving. Stable, I murmured. Guess the devil doesn't get everyone on the first try. For the first time in what felt like years, I let my shoulders drop. The tension, the fear, the endless pretending, it all bled out with one long exhale. And when I finally looked out the window, the night sky was clear again. Maybe fate had its own twisted sense of humor. But for once, I was on the right side of it. The morning after Sabrina's arrest started like every other morning had for the past few years. Quiet coffee, no noise, just the hum of the refrigerator and my own thoughts. But this time, there was no good morning text from her, no perfume trail wafting through the hallway, no passive-aggressive post-it on the counter reminding me to refill the Brita. The house felt emptier than ever, but not in a sad way. It was like I'd just vacuumed out a ghost. I sat at the kitchen table with the blinds half open, watching the sunlight hit her abandoned smoothie blender. Funny how one day you're married to someone, and the next, their possessions look like museum exhibits. This was the murder weapon of choice, I muttered, taking another sip of black coffee. Around 9 a.m., there was a soft knock at the door. For half a second, my body tensed, trauma response. But it wasn't Sabrina. It was Detective Lynn, the calm, dark-eyed woman from the night before, holding a manila envelope and a tired smile. Morning, Mr. Mercer, she said, stepping inside when I gestured her in. Mind if I sit? Sure, I said. You want coffee? It's not poisoned. Promise. She smirked. Tempting, but no thanks. I liked her. She had that rare cop energy, firm but human. The kind that made you want to tell the truth without feeling stripped bare. She opened her folder. We finished processing the car. I nodded slowly. And, your instincts were right, she said. The brake line was deliberately cut. We found your wife's fingerprints on the cap and near the tubing. Not accidental damage, clean slice. Very deliberate. I exhaled, part relief, part disgust. I figured as much. She flipped a page, voice steady. We also got access to her phone records. There are several messages exchanged between her and a Roxy Lambert, discussing what appears to be a plan. Code words mostly, the setup, the errand, the curve. But context makes the intention clear. Yeah, I said dryly. Roxy's not exactly the subtle type. She probably thinks code words make her sound like she's in a spy movie. Lynn nodded. We're bringing Roxy in today. Your wife, meanwhile, was processed last night and placed in a holding cell pending charges. Attempted murder, conspiracy, and reckless endangerment. I rubbed my jaw, the reality still heavy. So it's official. My marriage is a case file now. She gave me a sympathetic smile. It's official, but there's more. Of course there is, I muttered. There's always more. Your sister-in-law, Marissa, she regained partial consciousness this morning. That pulled me upright. She's awake? She's weak but responsive, Lynn said. She remembers leaving your house. Said your wife was acting strange that morning, unusually insistent that you be the one to take the car. When she offered to go instead, Sabrina froze up. I nodded. That tracks. She didn't plan for her sister to volunteer as tribute. Lynn continued. Marissa said she thought Sabrina was angry, but not why. She's asked to see you. My mind flickered through 1,000 possibilities. Guilt, curiosity, maybe closure. Why me? I asked. She says she needs to talk to you before she talks to anyone else. I stared into my coffee cup, watching the ripples fade. Yeah, I said finally. I'll go. St. Mary's Hospital looked exactly like every other hospital I'd ever hated. White walls, faint smell of antiseptic, and bad cafeteria coffee. I walked down the corridor, every step echoing like a reminder that none of this was supposed to happen. The nurse at the station recognized my name immediately. Mr. Mercer, right? She's been waiting for you. I followed her down the hall to room 214. The blinds were half drawn, sunlight filtering through like hesitant hope. Marissa lay there, pale but conscious, and 4 in her arm, oxygen tube snaking along her cheek. She looked like a painting of regret. When she saw me, her lips curled into a faint, weary smile. Guess I took your ride. I let out a shaky laugh. Yeah, you sure did. She coughed, grimacing. Sabrina's not answering my calls. I pulled up a chair. She won't be. She's in custody. Marissa blinked, eyes wide. Custody. I nodded. They found what she did to the brakes. For a moment, she just stared at me, her brain processing something too heavy to grasp. Then tears welled up, slow and silent. She really did it, she whispered. Yeah, I said softly. She did. I thought maybe it was an accident. Maybe her voice cracked. I defended her, Aaron. I told everyone she loved you. She loved the idea of me, I said. The version that looked good in photos and picked up the dinner tab. The real me? I was a liability. Marissa stared at her hands. I always envied you too. I thought you had everything. Yeah, I said bitterly. Turns out everything included attempted murder and poor life choices. She tried to laugh, but it came out as a weak cough. I reached over instinctively and adjusted her blanket. She gave me a grateful look that twisted something in my chest. You didn't deserve this, she said. Any of it. Neither did you, I said. You were supposed to go home, post yoga selfies, and judge my cooking like usual. Her eyes softened. You still make that awful chili? I smiled faintly. Every Sunday. Out of spite now. Silence hung between us for a moment, filled only by the hum of the machines. Then she said, She's always been complicated. You know that. But this isn't her. She's lost. She found her way to a pretty dark place, I said. And she took us with her. Marissa nodded slowly. They'll arrest her? They already have. Tears filled her eyes again. I can't believe my sister did this. I looked out the window, the city skyline hazy under the morning sun. People show their true selves when the spotlight fades. We talked for another hour, mostly small things, old family memories, fragments of what used to be normal. Before I left, she grabbed my wrist weakly. Don't let her destroy you too, she said. You survived. Don't waste that. I squeezed her hand gently. That's the plan. By the time I got home, reporters were camped at the end of the driveway. News travels fast when betrayal's involved. One of them shouted, Mr. Mercer, do you believe your wife intended to kill you? I gave them a smile that didn't reach my eyes. I believe she's about to find out actions have consequences. I shut the door behind me, locking out the noise. Inside, the house was calm again. My house. No more fake laughter, no more perfume battles, no more pretending. I sat down at the same kitchen table where this entire nightmare had started and finally opened the laptop I hadn't touched since the chaos began. The headline flashing across the screen made me snort. Wife's deadly break plot fails. Husband survives. Sister-in-law injured. Below it, a photo of Sabrina from some charity gala, smiling like the poster child of grace and deception. The article quoted sources close to the family, which was definitely Roxy. She'd probably sold the story faster than she'd deleted her call logs. As if on cue, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered. Mr. Mercer? Speaking. This is Officer Harlan. Just wanted to let you know we've completed the forensic review. Everything checks out. Texts, fingerprints, audio recording. It's an open and shut case. The DA's already drafting charges. I nodded, relief and exhaustion blending together. What happens next? She'll be arraigned tomorrow morning. You'll likely be subpoenaed as a witness. I'll send you the details. Got it, I said. Thanks. There was a pause. Then, softer, you did good, Mr. Mercer. Most people freeze. You thought ahead. I chuckled dryly. Yeah, petty survival instincts. Who knew they'd come in handy? After the call, I stared at the silent phone for a long time. The adrenaline was gone, replaced by the kind of fatigue that lives in your bones. I looked around the house, at every little sign of her. Her slippers by the door, her favorite mug, the perfume bottle still sitting on the vanity upstairs. I didn't feel rage anymore. Just finality. Sometimes closure doesn't come with fireworks. Sometimes it's just the quiet realization that the person you once loved has become a headline you'll never escape. That night, I sat on the porch, watching the stars flicker through the thin clouds. For the first time in a long time, I felt the air move differently, lighter, unburdened. The truth had come crashing down, sure, but it hadn't crushed me. It had rebuilt me. And for a man who'd been minutes away from dying behind the wheel of a rigged car, that was enough. Freedom is a weird thing. You spend years fighting for it in one way or another. Freedom from debt, from bad bosses, from traffic. And then one morning, you wake up and realize you finally got it. Freedom from a toxic marriage, from a woman who turned, I love you, into a legal hazard. But no one tells you how damn quiet it gets afterward. It had been 3 months since Sabrina's arrest. 3 months since the courtroom circus turned my name into a trending topic. The trial wrapped faster than I expected. The evidence was airtight, and my lawyer, God bless his caffeine-fueled aggression, didn't miss a beat. The jury deliberated for less than an hour. When the judge said, guilty on all counts, I felt something snap loose inside me. Not joy, not relief, just air, like I'd been holding my breath for years and finally exhaled. After that, I did what most freshly single men do when they narrowly avoid being murdered by their spouse. I started therapy. My therapist, Dr. Kim, was this soft-spoken woman in her 40s who wore cardigans that looked like they'd been hand-knitted by calm itself. First session, she asked me, "What are your goals, Aaron?" I said, "To stop checking my brake lines before leaving the driveway." She smiled politely, scribbled something in her notebook, and said, "We'll start with trust." Trust? Yeah, good luck with that. She made me talk about the marriage, the manipulation, the slow burn that turned into gasoline. Every week, I sat in that beige office with its tasteful inspirational posters and overpriced tissues, spilling my guts while pretending I wasn't emotionally constipated. "You're remarkably self-aware," she told me once. "Thanks," I said. "It's my favorite trauma response." Therapy helped, though. I stopped waking up expecting to find my car sabotaged. I stopped replaying the garage whisper in my head. I even started eating pancakes again, though I flipped them myself this time. Little victories. Then came the part Dr. Kim called reconnecting with joy. Translation, dating apps. Listen, I'm a 38-year-old man whose last serious relationship ended in a felony conviction. I wasn't exactly a hot commodity. But my friend Leo, the same guy who saved my life with a well-timed brake inspection, was determined to get me back in the game. "Dude," he said, waving his phone like a preacher with a Bible. "I'm setting up your profile. Women love a man with a redemption arc." "Leo," I said, "my redemption arc includes a murder trial." "Exactly. Makes you mysterious. Chicks dig mysterious." I sighed. "No one digs potential homicide victims, man." He ignored me. "What's your bio gonna say? How about survived a toxic marriage, looking for someone who prefers brunch over sabotage?" "Delete your account," I said. But he didn't, and within a week, I was swiping through humanity's finest collection of filtered selfies and vague quotes about energy alignment. My first match was a woman named Tessa who listed her occupation as manifesting abundance. We met at a cafe downtown. She was nice enough, talkative, enthusiastic, probably harmless. But 15 minutes in, she leaned forward and said, "So, Aaron, what's your biggest fear?" I stirred my coffee. "Brake fluid." She laughed. I didn't. Date number 2 was worse. The woman, Janelle, showed up 20 minutes late, ordered the most expensive thing on the menu, and then spent the entire meal talking about her ex-boyfriend, who apparently just didn't appreciate her spontaneity. I asked what she meant by that, and she said, "Like the time I slashed his tires after he ghosted me." Check, please. By the third date, I was ready to give up on romance entirely. But Dr. Kim said, "Don't close yourself off. Connection heals." Connection nearly killed me, I said. "Healthy connection heals," she corrected. "And you can't heal if you stay guarded forever." So I tried. I met a woman named Dana at a bookstore, old-fashioned, right? She laughed at my sarcastic commentary about self-help titles and didn't flinch when I told her I was divorced. When she asked what happened, I said, "It's a long story involving pancakes, brake fluid, and bad decision-making." She raised an eyebrow and said, "Sounds like an interesting memoir." For the first time, I didn't feel judged. I felt seen. We went out a few times, dinner, a walk by the river, late-night ice cream. It was simple, easy. No drama, no secrets, no hidden agendas. Just two people figuring out if the world still had room for something real. Of course, it wasn't perfect. I still had nightmares sometimes. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat, convinced I heard Sabrina whispering from the garage again. But Dana never pried. She'd just hand me a glass of water and say, "You're safe." I didn't realize how much I needed to hear that. Meanwhile, the trial had turned Sabrina into local infamy. She'd become the cautionary tale whispered about in dinner parties and true crime podcasts. The break job bride, they called her. I didn't care about the gossip. Let people talk. I'd lived it. Her lawyer tried everything. Stress, medication, emotional instability. The usual bag of excuses. But the evidence was too strong. Texts, fingerprints, the audio recording. Even Roxy folded under pressure and took a plea deal for conspiracy. I went to the sentencing hearing because I needed to see it through. Sabrina stood there in the orange jumpsuit, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. When the judge asked if she had anything to say, she looked straight at me and whispered, "I never stopped loving you." The courtroom went dead silent. I didn't respond. I didn't even blink. Because love doesn't look like that. Love doesn't tighten a wrench around a brake line. Love doesn't hide knives and smiles. The judge sentenced her to 15 years. I walked out without looking back. Life after that was ordinary, which was the weirdest part. I fixed up the house, repainted the living room, changed the locks. I even planted new flowers in the front yard. Bright ones, the kind Sabrina would have hated because they clashed with the aesthetic. The neighbors started waving again. My business picked up. For the first time in forever, peace didn't feel like a waiting room for the next disaster. One afternoon, Leo came by with a six-pack. "You're like a damn phoenix, man," he said, cracking open a beer. "You rose from the ashes." "Yeah," I said, except the ashes had better credit. He laughed so hard he nearly spit his drink. We sat on the porch for hours, watching the sunset, trading dumb stories from the past. I realized then that laughter, real, effortless laughter, was its own kind of therapy. A few days later, I ran into Marissa at the grocery store. She was walking, slowly, still recovering, but smiling. When she saw me, she stopped mid-aisle. "Aaron," she said softly. "Hey," I said. "How's the new car?" She smiled weakly. "Fully inspected. Twice." We talked for a while, mostly about mundane stuff. Work, recovery, the weirdness of becoming a footnote in a true crime case. Before we parted, she touched my arm gently. "I heard you're seeing someone." "Trying," I said. "Good," she said. "You deserve good things again." "Yeah," I said quietly. "I'm starting to believe that too." I wish I could say everything became perfect. It didn't. Healing isn't a straight line. It's a messy scribble with some coffee stains on it. There were days when I still felt angry, others when guilt crept in, whispering that I'd played a part in Marissa's pain. But Dr. Kim kept reminding me, you can't control someone else's destruction, only how you rebuild afterward. So I rebuilt, piece by piece. I started cooking again, not survival cooking, but real cooking. Meals with color and flavor. Pancakes made a comeback too. I'd laugh every time I flipped one perfectly. Still alive, I'd mutter to myself, raising my coffee mug like a toast. And I wrote. Nothing fancy, just notes, thoughts, little paragraphs about the absurdity of survival. One day, I might even publish it. Break lines and boundaries. How to survive marriage and murder in the same lifetime. Has a nice ring to it. Dana's still around. She doesn't ask for more than I can give, and I don't promise more than I can handle. We move slow, we laugh often, and sometimes she calls me lucky. I used to hate that word, but now I kind of get it. Lucky isn't about avoiding pain. It's about surviving it and somehow finding humor in the aftermath. Lucky is sitting on your porch on a quiet evening, beer in hand, watching the sunset without wondering who's cutting your break lines. Lucky is knowing you finally stopped being the punchline in someone else's story. And as I sat there that night, the breeze soft against my face, I thought back to everything. The pancakes, the garage, the lies, the crash, and realized something I hadn't before. Survival isn't luck. It's awareness. It's choosing to stay when running would be easier, to laugh when crying feels inevitable, to live when someone else tried to write your ending. So yeah, I guess I am lucky. And for the first time in a long time, I'm okay with that. There's something about nighttime knocks that stirs old ghosts. You can spend months healing, laughing again, sleeping like a normal person, and then 3 sharp knocks at your door, and every nerve in your body goes back on high alert. It had been nearly a year since Sabrina's sentencing. My life had finally begun to resemble something close to normal. Quiet mornings, a business that was back on track, and a girlfriend who didn't need to check my phone to know I was loyal. But that night, the knock was back. 3 soft but certain taps. I froze mid-sip of coffee, that same old adrenaline rushing through me like a flash flood. Really, I muttered to myself. We're doing this again. The house was dim, just the low glow from the kitchen lights spilling across the floor. I set my mug down and walked toward the door, half expecting some nosy reporter or a neighbor selling fundraisers for their kid's soccer team. But when I opened it, it wasn't either of those. Standing there was a young woman in scrubs, maybe mid-20s, holding a small white envelope in her hand. Her eyes were kind, but heavy with the look of someone who's been carrying other people's news all day. "Mr. Mercer?" she asked softly. "That depends," I said. "Are you here to serve papers or deliver pizza?" A faint smile ghosted across her lips. "Neither. I'm a nurse at St. Mary's Hospital. I work in the rehabilitation ward." She hesitated, then added, "Marissa asked me to find you." My chest tightened. "Marissa?" She nodded. "She woke up fully last week. She's been asking for you every day since." I blinked. The last time I saw Marissa, she'd been pale, bandaged, and barely conscious. Part of me had convinced myself she wouldn't make it. The other part didn't know what I'd even say if she did. She's awake?" The nurse smiled faintly. "Very much awake. Strong, too. She said she owed you a car." That actually made me laugh. An honest, startled laugh that came from somewhere deep. "Yeah," I said, rubbing the back of my neck. "That sounds like her." She handed me the envelope. "She wrote you this. Said it's important." I took it carefully. My fingers trembled a little. The handwriting on the front was messy, rushed, Aaron written in thick black ink. I hadn't seen my name written by a Mercer woman since the divorce decree. "Thank you," I said quietly, "for bringing this." She nodded, stepping back. She said she hopes you'll come. When she left, the night was suddenly louder. Crickets, wind, the faint hum of traffic in the distance. I stood there a long time with the envelope in my hand before finally tearing it open. Inside was a folded letter. Simple, handwritten, raw. "Aaron, I don't know where to start, so I'll just start here. I'm sorry. For everything. Sabrina's gone for good, and I don't think she even understands what she did. But I do. You didn't deserve any of it. You didn't deserve her lies or my silence. I should have said something sooner. I knew she was spiraling. I just didn't think she'd go that far. The doctors say I'm lucky to be alive. I don't feel lucky. I feel guilty. Because if I hadn't taken the keys, she would have gotten what she wanted. You'd be gone, and she'd be here pretending to cry. You don't owe me anything, but I needed to see you once more before I leave town. There's something you should know, something Sabrina hid even from you. Please come. Room 412. M. I read it twice. Then I folded it and slipped it into my jacket pocket. By the time I got to St. Mary's, it was close to midnight. The corridors were dim and quiet, that sterile hospital silence broken only by the occasional beeping of machines. Room 412 was at the end of the hall, lights spilling through the half-open door. Marissa was sitting upright in bed, hair shorter now, her face thinner but somehow stronger. When she saw me, she smiled, a real one, tired but alive. "Guess I took your ride," she said again, her voice raspy but playful. I stepped inside, closing the door behind me. "Yeah, and saved my life in the process. Not a bad trade." She laughed softly. "You look better." "Therapy, coffee, and distrust," I said. "It's a solid combo." For a moment, neither of us spoke. The air between us was heavy with everything unspoken. The accident, Sabrina, the strange way fate had flipped the script. "I read your letter," I said. "You said Sabrina hid something from me." She nodded slowly, eyes lowering. "Yeah, I debated whether to tell you, but you deserve to know." I pulled up a chair. "Hit me." She reached for the drawer beside her bed and pulled out a small flash drive. "She left this in my apartment the night before she told you to take the car." I didn't know what it was at first. I thought it was something for work, but she paused, taking a shaky breath. "It's a recording. From her phone. The last conversation she had with Roxy before the plan." I frowned. Didn't the cops already have her texts? "This is different," she said. "She told Roxy something else. Something about you." I hesitated, then took the drive. "You listened to it?" She nodded, guilt flashing in her eyes. "Yeah, you should too. But not here. Not yet." I turned the flash drive over in my hand, trying to guess what could possibly be left to reveal. "Why didn't you tell the police?" "Because it's not about the case anymore," she said softly. "It's about closure. For you." I looked at her for a long moment. "Marissa, you almost died. You don't owe me closure." She smiled weakly. "Maybe not, but I owe you the truth." I pocketed the drive, then reached for her hand. "Thank you. For everything." She squeezed back, her grip surprisingly strong. "Promise me you'll listen to it. Then let it go. Don't let her haunt you forever." I nodded. "Deal." When I left the hospital, the night was quiet again, almost unnaturally so. The city skyline glowed in the distance, and I stood there for a long moment under the streetlight, feeling the weight of that tiny flash drive in my pocket. Back home, I poured myself a whiskey, neat, no ice. I plugged the drive into my laptop, opened the only file on it, and hit play. Static. Then Sabrina's voice, soft but sharp, cutting through like a ghost. "Roxy, stop panicking. He's not stupid, but he's predictable. That's why it'll work." "You sure, girl? You really want to go through with this?" Roxy's voice, nervous. "He thinks I'm leaving him. He said he's done, so I'll make sure he's done on my terms. He'll never see it coming." I clenched my jaw. Same venom, same arrogance. But then her voice softened, almost trembling. "He doesn't love me anymore. He used to look at me like I was the only person in the room. Now he just looks through me. I hate that version of me he made. Quiet, careful, useless. If I can't have him the way I want him, then I'll take the life we built together and burn it down." My throat tightened. There it was, the raw, pathetic core of it all. Not greed, not even jealousy. Control. She couldn't stand losing it. Then came the part that made my stomach drop. "But here's the thing, Roxy, part of me hopes he survives. Just so he has to live with it." I paused the recording, staring blankly at the screen. My reflection stared back at me, pale and haunted. She hadn't just wanted to kill me. She'd wanted to break me, even in survival. I sat there for a long time, the whiskey burning down my throat, the house too quiet. Then I closed the laptop, took the flash drive out, and without another thought, threw it into the fireplace. The flames swallowed it whole. The next morning, I drove back to St. Mary's. Marissa was sitting by the window, sunlight catching her hair. She smiled when she saw me. "You listened?" "Yeah," I said softly. "And I burned it." Her eyebrows lifted slightly. "Good." I sat beside her. She wasn't trying to kill me for money. She wanted to kill me because she couldn't stand being forgotten. Marissa nodded slowly. "That sounds like her. Guess she got what she wanted," I said quietly. "Everyone remembers her now, for all the wrong reasons." She reached over, touching my arm gently. "You don't owe her any more thought, Aaron. You lived. That's your victory." I looked at her, really looked. The bruises were fading, the scars lighter. She looked fragile but strong in a way Sabrina never was. "You saved my life," I said. "How do I repay that?" She smiled. You already did. You lived. We talked for a while longer about the weather, her recovery, my attempts at therapy, and her new plans to move out of the city. Before I left, she said something that stuck. You know, the difference between you and Sabrina is simple, she said. You build things. She destroyed them. Keep building. That line followed me all the way home. Months passed. The seasons changed. I rebuilt, literally and emotionally. I launched a small foundation for survivors of domestic manipulation, partly as therapy, partly as payback to karma. I called it the Mercer Project. People loved the name. Dana and I moved in together eventually. She never asked too many questions about the past. She just let me exist, flaws and all. Some nights, she'd catch me staring into space and just say, "You're here." That's enough. And for once, it was. One evening, I found myself on the porch again. The same one where this story had begun, with whiskey in hand and the sunset painting the sky in impossible colors. For a moment, I thought about Sabrina, not with anger, not even with sadness. Just distance. She was a story I'd lived, not a life I was still trapped in. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Marissa. Got my license back. Driving again. Brakes feel perfect. I smiled. They should, I thought. I set the phone down, leaned back, and let out a long breath. The world was quiet again. And this time, it wasn't silence. It was peace.